first of all, before we get to what we can expect from Trump today, let's talk about the meeting in Washington. The premier's described it as constructive. Ultimately, what do you think was achieved?
Very little, because it was not that high level a meeting. But what I found as the most positive signal about that meeting was the very fact that the premiers of the 10 provinces and the 3 territories were invited to the White House, irrespective of the level of the people who were their interlocutors. It shows a willingness, at least at the White House, and it takes people at the highest level to make that call, to say, look, we're going to try to treat these people, they're important, and we're going to try to treat them properly. So that was positive. Also positive, I think, was some of the reaction from the premiers. It's interesting to watch how things are moving forward. But you heard, for example, Francois Legault open up on pipelines last week and this week, something that had been a definite no from him. So, and he's had a very strong take on the tariffs on aluminum. 60% of the aluminum used in the United States is manufactured in Quebec. And it's not only the manufacturing concerns, the big smelters, but it's also thousands and thousands of jobs, tens of thousands, in fact, in smaller companies that transform that aluminum. So it's a huge issue for him. But he's been taking a stoic approach, saying, look, we should sit down and start preparing the renegotiation of the Canada-US-Mexico trade deal, because that's going to be on the table as well. I think that overall there's a lot of maturity in that room, Marcia, and a willingness to deal with this head on. The early stuff where we had Danielle Smith, who we can just see in that picture there, actually, refusing to take part and that sort of thing, that seems to be a thing of the past. And I think that overall will be a good thing for Canada.
So you appreciate the strategy at this point, because some people are saying, oh, I wonder if we're being too soft. Maybe we should take a harder line.
Yeah, but you have to take a harder line when you're reacting to something concrete. Because Trump is playing this game, it's always sleight of hand. He talks big, and then he says, you've got 30 more days. And then he says, oh, it's really going to be tough. And then he says, well, then we're going to come up with the details later. And so now we're looking at dates like today for some parts. What's the reciprocal tariff actually mean for Canada? Who's he actually going to be going after with that? When he talks about early March, that's going to be another set. That's the end of the 30 days. But then we get to the April 1st deadline, which was set by the administration and set down the day of his inauguration as well. So people have, of course, been trying to navigate within that. And I think that that's why it's a prudent approach. But I mean, putting simple things on the table, saying, look, let's get started. It doesn't matter who becomes the Prime Minister of Canada a month from now, who wins the leadership race, in other words, of the Liberals. You can do a lot of the preliminary work right away, but that would require the Americans to actually have a position. And clearly, they floated ideas. Mr. Trudeau talked about critical minerals. I've spoken about water, because Trump has mentioned it several times. He wants access to bulk water exports from Canada. And they're certainly going to be going after our agricultural sector in something that we call supply management, that they hate, because they say it's unfair to their producers. And we'll have that argument. We'll have that debate. We'll have that negotiation. But for now, we're shadow boxing. And so I think that it is wise not to react too strongly immediately, to keep your powder dry, but to be ready for a full blast of riposte if it comes to that.
All right, Tom, appreciate that. We're going to leave it there for today. Tom is our CTV News political commentator and the former leader of the NDP. We do want to share